Sneaky here, we're back with gym battles. This series, if you're new to it, is about deck building to beat specific decks. I'm going to be fighting the Pokemon Pocket Gym Leader of the Dark type gym, and I built this deck to take them on. The rule is every deck has to have a gimmick, it can't just use all meta Pokemon, so I'm using new Celebi, non-EX Celebi, with an Arceus Carnivine deck. That's sort of the gimmick. There's going to be a bunch of battles in this video, so I'm starting it. Normally I explain the deck first. I'm going to start this battle. Spoiler alert, I'm going to lose, but I'm going to use what I learned from this loss to rebuild the deck, make it a lot better, and try again. And this series is all about, hey Psyduck, learning how to build good decks, how to improve decks, how to, counter meta. Even though my opponent is kind of, not meta, but the point is to learn. So let's get into it. This is going to be fun. All right. So my opponent is using a Darkrai, Crobat, Nihilego deck. It's all about poison and harassment damage. I've got Celebi, non-EX, and the idea behind that is if I can use Giovanni or Red on the Crobat, with Celebi, I can one-shot Crobat EX. One-shot it. Remove its evolution and remove it from the board. That's why I have 2 Giovanni and 2 Trainer Red in the deck. Carnivine is meant to do 50 damage to one-shot the Zubat if I have Arceus. And the idea is sort of just playing around, making sure that Crobat can't sweep me. Arceus is kind of there to not be poisoned and to do big damage, because I needed a big damage attacker. And you're sort of seeing it play out right now. Since I didn't get Arceus, super unlucky in my initial hand in this first game. I'm starting with Carnivine. I had to go first, so I'm second energy. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. But I figure that's okay. That's okay. I'll just sacrifice Carnivine and play from there. And you're not just going to see mistakes with this deck, because there are some flaws in my deck. You're going to see mistakes in my gameplay. Because remember, this is a new deck. I just built it. I hadn't really tried it on anyone. So I'm going to learn a few things that I'm going to try to point out while we're playing about how to do this a little better. Because this whole series is just about getting better at Pokemon Pocket. So I used Giovanni, and now Celebi can do 50 damage and take out Zubat. That was another, tech in the deck. You notice I've been building a lot of decks lately that have all these cool synergies, right? So Giovanni plus Celebi can one-shot Zubat. Carnivine plus Arceus can one-shot Zubat. I have so many different ways to one-shot Zubat. And that's a big part of deck building. You want to threaten the thing you're playing against. Unfortunately, my opponent gets an instant Crobat EX and is going to be able to knock out my Celebi right away. And I'm realizing even if I had put Leaf Cape on Celebi, I don't know if it would have mattered. Because with Nihilego plus Darkrai poke, you could do 40 extra damage, so that's 110 damage. So Leaf Cape actually would not save Celebi. You can see right here, I'm trying it. I'm putting Leaf Cape on the Celebi. Oh, I win the game if I can survive for one more turn and knock out the Crobat, right? That's what I'm thinking. But the problem is, you're going to see it. Alright, this is why my strategy did not work. Darkrai poke does 20 damage. Venomous Slash will do 70 damage and I'm poisoned. And Nihilego makes the poison another 20 damage. It's overkill. I'm done. So even though I thought in my head Leaf Cape would be enough to save the non-EX Celebi, it clearly wasn't, and I dropped the first game. Alright, we're gonna just let me fast forward a little bit to the... Okay, I do the second game there. Alright, so going into my second game, I'm like, okay, I got this. I got this. I'm realizing that my deck might have some problems. I'm realizing that Leaf Cape might be completely useless. So we're going to remember that. Leaf Cape doesn't work because it doesn't give me enough health to survive the very thing I put it in the deck to survive. Crobat's attack. That's okay, though. I got better draws. Right, I'm going second this time. I've got Carnivine, Arceus, Celebi. I've got my trio of destiny. I've got Exodia. I'm feeling a lot better about this. But I'm up against Nihilego. And I'm realizing that I don't have any way to one-shot Nihilego. It's kind of annoying, isn't it? When you think about it. I have all these ways to one-shot Zubat or Crobat. I planned the entire deck around that, defeating Crobat. But nothing can make me one-shot Nihilego. There's no way to do it. So I'm going to have to wear down Nihilego over 2 turns. But that's okay. I put a second Carnivine down, right? And we can attack. We can attack. I'm not actually going second. I'm going first again. I'm sorry. I missed the thing. I'm going first again, which stinks. But so I get 50 damage down, right? Massive damage to Nihilego. I've got a Carnivine in the back. I've got a Celebi in the back. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling like I drew the cards I needed to activate the Wombo combos here. One thing that's frustrating a little bit is I feel like I'm playing more of a standard Arceus Carnivine deck rather than taking advantage of my gimmicky Celebi. But, you know, that's going to be relevant when Crobat comes out. That's the thing that can KO Crobat. So as long as Celebi is ready to go, I can beat Crobat whenever I want, which is great. Now I'm realizing, okay, I have a problem. Carnivine is going to get knocked out by Poison plus Darkrai Poke. Even though, you know, Carnivine's supposed to be, you know, the best thing ever here, I'm losing to Nihilego because it has enough health and I can't one-shot it. And it does that poison trip on me, and I don't have a solution to that. So I just use Leaf Cape to survive the poison a little longer, right? It's only going to do 10 damage since I knocked the Nihilego out instead of 20. And then now they have a choice. They can attack me with Zubat, or they could put energy on Darkrai. They'll probably put energy on Darkrai here. I get Marsed. That's fine. Knocks out a lot of my tech, which, you know, it's not great, but it's fine. I got my Ilma. I've got Red, you know, which can let me defeat Crobat with Celebi if I need to. So, you know, I've got all my tech. I get Poke with Darkrai. I'm still suffering from poison. It's really annoying, and I'm like, ugh, what do I do here? I decide to retreat. That might have been a mistake because it burns energy, and I might have needed that energy for Arceus later. And this is one of those things where I'm not quite used to the deck. I just built it. But it would have probably been better to have sacrificed the Carnivine. The reason I didn't want to, though, is because I knew it would instantly get knocked out by Darkrai Poke, right? And I didn't want to give them that free KO, forcing me to switch into the new Carnivine and then potentially getting Sabrina or something. I wanted them to burn Cyrus if they wanted to take this out, and they did. So that worked. That worked. I got them to waste Cyrus, but I still don't know if it was a good idea. Might not have been a good idea. So in this position, I'm like, okay, that's fine. This isn't bad. This is a good position. I've only lost one prize point. I'm facing down Darkrai. I can do this. I put the second energy on Arceus because might as well. I use Red because might as well. And I'm just going for massive damage here. It's going to be super effective against Darkrai. Boom. 90 damage from a 1 energy Carnivine. You know, Celebi is going to be able to one-shot that. Carnivine can one-shot that. That Darkrai is looking pretty sus right now. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like, okay, the combos aren't womboing the way I wanted, right? Celebi has not done anything yet. Celebi has been completely useless. Just kind of sitting on the bench, not being useful at all. Which is sad. But Carnivine's been awesome. The point of this was to build a gimmick deck, so Carnivine being awesome is not quite what I wanted, but we're going to see more Celebi stuff coming on. Remember, this was only my first attempt against the gym leader, and there are a lot of games in this video, and that's why I jumped right into it instead of kind of explaining the deck like I usually do. Though I kind of like this format, just explaining the deck while I play. That might actually be better. Maybe I should just do this from now on. Just explain the deck while I play. Maybe? I think that's pretty good, actually. Let me know if you like that in the comments, like if you prefer this to how I've been editing them so far. We could do that. I'm looking at maybe getting an editor soon, so we'll see. We'll see. I might even be able to make them even better, the videos, but yeah. For right now, let me know in the comments. Okay, so Darkrai is looking pretty sus. My opponent's looking pretty sus. You know, they could dump all their energy and retreat. They're kind of stuck. I think I got them here. And they just give me the soft surrender. That's when, you know you've lost and you'll let your opponent finish it by giving them the final attack. So that's basically a surrender for my opponent. GG, I knock out Darkrai. It's 1-1. Remember, this is a best of 3. So to get the badge, to defeat this gym leader, I need to beat them one more time in this best of 3. You already know I'm not going to, because I told you. But it's going to be very informative why. So let's pay attention to why it doesn't work. Why they beat me. Okay? Alright, so this is the final game of my first attempt. You know I'm going to lose. And it's okay for me to spoil that. Because the point is, why did I lose? What is wrong with this deck? What's wrong with it? What do we need to fix? That is what we're focusing on. Alright, so I've got my Carnivine here. I got my Arceus. This looks like a great start. And finally, I'm going second. I thought I was going second the previous time, but I wasn't. Finally, I'm going second, so this is great. I got everything I wanted. It's you know, it's the best birthday ever. This is just what I wanted. Of a plant and the pony of the sky. I don't know. That's what you ask. Anyway, all right, so, it's Nihilego again. And Nihilego is the reason that there's a problem with this deck. You're going to see it. Nihilego is the problem. Even though I have Giovanni, that will not give me enough to one-shot Nihilego. It looks like I've won this, right? It looks like I'm just winning. Looks like I fantastically won. I go for the attack here. There's 50 damage. Looks like I'm going to win the game. Looks great. So what's wrong? They put another Nihilego on the bench. That's what's wrong. And they give it energy. And I can't attack that second Nihilego because I'm fighting this one. Whoop-de-doo. I still think I'm winning, though. I put Celebi on the bench, and I'm like, who do I give energy to? I'll give energy to Arceus, because having a big attacker would let me wipe out the second Nihilego, right? So I get my first prize point. It looks like I'm really winning. My phone is dying, which is a good sign. It usually means I'm going to win when my phone is dying. Don't ask me why, but that just tends to happen. They put out the Nihilego, and I still think I've got this. I still think the game is mine, right? I think victory is assured. So it does 30 damage to me plus the poison. I take 20. Looking a little sketch, but I'm so close to winning right now. I'm fantastically close to winning. I get a professor's research. This feels so good. What could possibly be wrong with this deck? I get Trainer Red that's not very useful in this situation. We'll make a note of that. How often has Trainer Red actually been useful? I used it against Darkrai, but I didn't really need it necessarily, right? So I decide to just attack. I think I'm winning, and then I'll switch into Arceus, and Arceus will do massive damage, and it's great, right? Might have made a mistake. Might have made a mistake with that energy. We'll see. We'll see. But they put Darkrai down and poke down the Carnivine. What do I do? I decide to put in Celebi, and this might have been a big oops. This might have been a big oops. One of the reasons I did this was I didn't want Arceus to take damage. I know Arceus is immune to the poison. Arceus couldn't take poison, but it could still take 30 damage, and I didn't want it to be in a position where I could potentially lose to Darkrai a few turns down the road. But it was definitely a mistake. I should have put in Arceus in this position. I might have won if I hadn't done that, if I had put Arceus there. Then again, I might have just gotten Sabrina into the Celebi, so. Either way, big mistake on my part. Massive mistake on my part. I realize that now I'm stuck. If I put energy on Celebi and retreat Celebi into Arceus, I still take the 30 damage I was trying to avoid, and Darkrai poke. That's going to be 50 damage. Then Darkrai does 100 to me next turn and knocks me out. And I lose. Oops. Oops. Big oops. Yeah, you can see it, right? If you think a few turns ahead, I lose if I retreat. So I can't retreat into Arceus. I've got to retreat into Carnivine, which wastes even more energy. One thing I could have potentially done was put the energy on Arceus, put the energy onto Arceus, right? And then allow Celebi to get knocked out by giving it Leaf Cape, so Darkrai couldn't just poke it out. It would have to be an attack. I probably should have done that. But it would have put me in the same situation because I'd still have all that damage coming into Arceus when it went in. Or Arceus would take out Nihilego and then it would have to duel Darkrai. There's a lot of math to consider, but you can definitely see that there were better things I could have done during these turns. I really should have just put energy on Arceus, gotten Arceus ready to go, used Arceus, but I didn't, and that massive mistakes were made. You can see the mistakes being made. Even though this deck is not optimal, I still could have beaten the gym leader. I still could have won this had I not made all these mistakes. So this is a good learning moment. This is me being new to the deck, not realizing I totally could have just put stuff on Arceus and marched forward and won. Probably, right? With the reds and the Giovannis and stuff, I think I would have had enough damage to knock out the Arceus. I think while I was playing this, I didn't have a red or Giovanni at the time, so I couldn't one-shot Darkrai. I had to two-shot it, which is why the math was a little weird. But yeah, anyway, point of that is massive mistakes were made. So you can see I'm struggling now, right? and they get the Crobat in the back, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. Celebi can knock that out, except it doesn't have any energy on it. And I've gotten myself into this awful position where my opponent can just play with me now. My opponent can just play with my retreat costs. I'm energy stunned. All that subtle mistake I made putting in the wrong Pokemon, and then just keep making that mistake. It put me in an unwinnable position. And I think it's important to show you this so that you can see what the consequences of these mistakes are, right? I finally had red, but now it was silvered away. So now I can't, knock out the Darkrai. And they switch into Crobat, so it doesn't even matter, because Arceus can't knock out Crobat. Celebi has to, but I have no energy on Celebi. Poop. So I literally have to put Arceus forward and put energy on Celebi to try to defeat Crobat. I still think I win, though. I still think I win. Right? I'm still thinking, I've got this. Darkrai has no energy. I'll use Arceus to take out Crobat. It can't defeat me because I can't be poisoned. I'm still thinking I've got this as long as they don't get Cyrus. And yeah, I could have also put the energy on Celebi. That would have worked too. But they had Cyrus, and that's how I lose. Ultimately, I spent too much time fussing and retreating when I should have just pressed forward. I think that would have given me the best chances if I drew the right cards, right? So mistakes were made, and that's why I lost that game. But there's also a few things wrong with this deck that we need to talk about before we get into the next set of matches. And you're going to see it's like night and day. The next set of matches are not even close. Not even close. I will destroy that person with small changes to this deck and not making that mistake. But the mistake didn't even matter. The mistake, I would have won anyway if I had made these changes. First of all, Leaf Cape was useless. Right? There were a few situations where it saved me from like a Cyrus Darkrai poke. But then it just happened later and knocked me out anyway. Leaf Cape did not make any difference in terms of the damage numbers. The reason I put Leaf Cape in the deck, remember, you don't put Leaf Cape in the deck because, 30 health is always good. No, it's not. 30 health is not always good. It's not. It was specifically to survive Crobat. But because of Nihilego, because of Darkrai, Celebi can't survive Crobat with Leaf Cape. It doesn't work. So we want to get rid of that. Trainer Red was also not necessary. Celebi can knock out the Crobat with Giovanni. It doesn't need Trainer Red, it can do it with Giovanni, and I've got two of them. Trainer Red did help me do extra damage to Darkrai, but I didn't really need the extra damage at most points in time. Maybe that one time with the Arceus last game, the Red could have allowed something, but generally speaking, it wasn't as necessary. So let's take a look at the final deck I ended up using. Okay, this is the updated version of the deck. You can see I made two changes. I got rid of Leaf Cape, which was useless, and I got rid of Trainer Red. It was useful. Could have even won me that last game if I had played differently. I'm still getting rid of it. Here's the trick. Just because a card could be useful doesn't mean there's not a better card. How many times was I struggling to beat Nihilego, and my Pokemon got within that 20 range, where Darkrai could poke KO them, and then proceed to attack the next Pokemon? That was way more threatening to me than the lack of Trainer Red. So I replaced Trainer Red with Nurse Joy, which does 30 healing plus removes poison, so that could potentially heal another 10 to 20 damage. It's basically like a 50 heal in this situation. So we got Nurse Joy, technically Poké Center Lady, instead of Trainer Red, and we've got Rocky Helmet instead of Leaf Cape. Here's why I wanted Rocky Helmet. Leaf Cape was useless, we proved that. It had some weird, maybe help me survive a little longer on some grass types, but it wasn't that good. Rocky Helmet will let me one-shot Nihilego, because if Nihilego attacks a 50 damage Pokemon like Carnivine, with Rocky Helmet, that's 70 damage, it gets knocked out. So Rocky Helmet will actually do something to help me progress towards the win. These changes might seem small, but you're going to see they make a big difference. All right, just give me 1 second. I'm going to update this here. Okay, this is my second attempt against the gym leader. Brand new best of 3. But this time, it's not even going to be close. With these small changes, a little bit better luck, and now I'm familiar with the deck. I know how to play. Those 3 things combined, domination. All right? So I get my Carnivine Arceus start. Really great, really powerful. And we're going to see that when these subtle changes don't matter, the game is going to play about the same way, but I'll be doing well. When these subtle changes do matter, the parts where I start losing don't exist. And I just start winning when I would otherwise be kind of stalled or losing. So these small changes to the deck are going to make a big difference. All right, they've got Nihilego, they've got their Crobat. I get to go second, which is great for me. It's fantastic. Let's be honest, going second makes a big difference in this game. I'm like, all right, let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. I'm debating playing Professor's Research here. Do I need to? Yeah, I want to. We'll try to get that Rocky Helmet. There we go, Celebi. Perfect. I got everything I wanted. I'm kind of deciding what to put the Rocky Helmet on, you know? Because if I put it on Carnivine, Nihilego's probably not going to be able to attack this turn. So maybe I want to put it on something else. I decide to put it on the Celebi. My thinking is if they stall me and somehow a Nihilego hits Celebi, I can do the extra, 20 damage, knock it out. Like if I get Sabrina'd or repelled or something. So I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking, where can I place this so that it will do the 20 damage in the future? So that's pretty good. Now I've got this massive threat. If they try to Sabrina and attack me, they'll hit the Rocky Helmet. That's nice. That's a new tech I've added. Darkrai pokes. They're not even bothering to try to use, Nihilego. Silver hits me again. That's fine. I don't care. They can see my hand, but it won't stop anything. And they get rid of my Nurse Joy. A little bit annoying. That could have healed Carnivine, right? But it forced them to use that on the Nurse Joy instead of something else. That proves that it's a good card. They had to get rid of it with Silver. Alright, so obviously I can sweep the Nihilego here. And my biggest worry is Crobat coming online, right? If Crobat comes online, I want to be able to take it out. I can do that with Celebi. And here's another cool thing about the Rocky Helmet I didn't talk about yet. If Crobat hits Celebi, right, that would do 20 damage, right? Well, hold on. That means if Crobat gets caped, and I attack it with Celebi and it turns into Zubat and it lives, that Zubat cannot attack Celebi or it would get knocked out. Because the 20 damage from the Rocky Helmet would make up for the damage from the cape. Right? And if Carnivine hits Zubat and then I get repelled into... So there are so many combinations of things that could force them to attack the benched Rocky Helmet, and that would counter a bunch of things that they could do. If it seems like I'm just talking and throwing a lot of words at you, don't worry about it. The important thing is that the Rocky Helmet is doing a lot that you're not even seeing. It's stopping them from using certain strategies that they could use if that wasn't there. So they decide to sacrifice Zubat here. Why are they doing that? Crobat is their most powerful option. Why are they sacrificing Zubat? It's because I've got Celebi with 1 energy. I actually asked my opponent after this game why they started sacrificing Zubats in this set. The reason is they realized that once Celebi has 1 energy, there is nothing they can do because I'm guaranteed to wipe out their Crobat. So Crobat is actually a liability because I'll knock it out and I'll get 2 prize points. So Celebi being on the bench with Rocky Helmet and 1 energy means they can't even use their most powerful card against me. It's not that it does nothing. It's that they can't even play it onto the field because they are so afraid that I will destroy it. That is how powerful this is. Without even needing to attack, Celebi got them to sack Zubat, one of their most powerful cards. So at this point, I'm just going into Darkrai. I'm realizing, all right, they're playing with Darkrai. That's fine. I play Giovanni plus, Celebi. We do the 40 damage to Darkrai. And now Darkrai is going to have to attack me and eat through the Rocky Helmet and do an additional, an additional 20 damage to itself. It's just great. It's just, how do you survive this? Right? They use Dark Prism, just knock out my Celebi. Take the 20 damage. And that's only their second prize point, So as long as they can't Sabrina me, I'm golden. As long as they can't Sabrina me, I'm golden. That's the only way they could win the game right now is with the Sabrina. I put energy on Arceus, I end my turn. And remember, they have mostly Cyruses in that deck. They have mostly Cyruses, so I was pretty sure they weren't going to get the Sabrina. I win as long as they don't have it. Wait for it. Wait for it. They don't have it. GG, overkill with Arceus. I pick up the first game. Now, That looked pretty clean. You know, I forced them to sack the Zubat. I got rid of Nihilego very quickly. I had tech to prevent things that weren't even on the table, honestly. I was over-prepared for anything that they could do. The only time they ever could have won was Sabrina at the last moment. But because their deck has to run Cyrus and all these poison stuff, right, and the evolution for Crobat, which I've completely negated, they just can't fit Sabrina Repel, I think, or they can't fit that many of them. Maybe they have one, and they couldn't get it. And besides, you know, if I could draw any cards in my deck, I would have just had a second Arceus, right, and an Ilima, and I would have been fine. Or, you know, I could have X-Speed, you know. So, like, I also could have countered that with the right cards. So, yeah, I think this deck is doing great. You know, it's doing really well. Leaf Cape would not really have helped in that situation. Wouldn't have really done anything. Rocky Helmet did an extra 20 damage to Darkrai. It didn't end up mattering, but the threat of it made it so that they couldn't put energy on Nihilego. The threat of Celebi meant they couldn't evolve Crobat. And this is how you win games. It's not just by doing stuff. It's by threatening to do stuff. Threatening to do stuff is actually better than doing stuff. Because your opponent, a good opponent like this, they know they can't win if they walk into your trap. So they just have to sacrifice half their deck and say, I can't play half my deck. Now, once again, we see the Nihilego Zubat, right? We see Nihilego Zubat. They know I'm going second. They know I'm going to one-shot the Zubat. Why are they doing this? Why are they sacrificing the Zubat instead of sacrificing the Nihilego? You know why. They're afraid of Celebi. They know Celebi destroys Crobat, so there is literally nothing they can do to try to use Crobat against me. So they will sacrifice Zubat every single time. And because just the threat of Celebi is forcing them to sacrifice Zubat, I never have to fight Crobat, so I don't even have to put energy on Celebi. Do you see how crazy this is? Because Celebi exists, I don't need to put one energy on Celebi to threaten Crobat, because they know I'm going to do that, and so to prepare for me doing that, they sacrifice the Zubat, and so I don't need to do that, and so I get a free energy. Boom! I love this game sometimes. So I can put the energy on Arceus instead. And right now I'm thinking, well, should I put Rocky Helmet on the Carnivine or the Arceus? Does it matter? I decided to put it on the Carnivine. My thinking here is that Darkrai is going to have to attack the Carnivine at some point. And notice how they didn't put energy on Nihilego? Because it wouldn't have worked. If they had put energy on Nihilego and attacked me, they would have knocked themselves out with the Rocky Helmet. So they're just powering up Darkrai in the back. There's nothing they could do. There's nothing they could do to touch me. The threat of Rocky Helmet means that they have to power up the back Darkrai. That might have been the better move anyway, but the important thing is that just these small changes I've made are taking options away from them, right? That could have been an option. Now it's not. I've stolen so many of the options of their deck that they're forced to sacrifice Zubat, sacrifice Nihilego, try to win with Darkrai. This is all they can do. The reason they're doing this a second time, even though it lost the first time, is because I've taken all of their options away. They have no choice. There is nothing else that they can do to fight me. They have to try for a Darkrai play. 20 damage from the Rocky Helmet, and now Arceus can one-shot Darkrai if I can put something else on the bench, because that'll give me 130 damage. Or I don't put anything else on the bench, I just play Giovanni, and I also do 120 damage, without even needing to. As it happened, I had Pokeball and Giovanni, so I could do both and just overkill the Darkrai. This deck was precisely calculated so that the numbers exactly equaled the healths of my opponent's Pokemon. And that's how you make a crazy good counter deck. I won 2 out of 3 super easily and picked up the Darkness badge. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. I've still got a few more gym battles to release before I show you my battle with the Elite Four. It was really cool. And I'm probably going to try to release those a little more quickly if I can, because Pokemon ZA is coming out, and I kind of want to finish the series before it does. So stay tuned. That's all for now. This has been the Sneaky Dragon, and I'll catch you later.